Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Kevin Canase, and I'm a supervisor with our team here on the Minneapolis Homes team. And we thank you for joining our question and answer session this evening. You will be hearing from some of our Minneapolis Homes staff about our current homeownership development financing and property purchase applications that are currently available. Before I turn it over to my colleagues Tara and Matthew, I wanted to reiterate our thanks for your joining and your interest in developing affordable housing in the city of Minneapolis. Our Minneapolis Homes suite of programs focuses on helping households access homeownership through financial wellness and homebuyer education counseling. It also focuses on creating affordable homeownership units, which is the focus of tonight, and sustaining homeownership through rehabilitation loans. Since 2018, we've helped over 5,000 households in their journey to homeownership through our various programs as part of Minneapolis Homes. And over the last 2 years, we've approved 196 units of affordable homeownership units. Our rate of service to Black, Indigenous, and people of color households is 70% as we try to impact the homeownership disparity in the city of Minneapolis. And we're excited to have you here today with us. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tara and Matthew, who are going to give you an overview of our programs before we take your questions and answer them today.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Tara Roberts, and I'm a senior project coordinator on our CPED residential real estate team. And thank you for joining our question and answer session for the Minneapolis Homes Financing Program, Notice of Funding Availability, and application for the city-owned property. Tonight, we'll be recording today's presentation and posting it on the city's website, along with the training slides and responses to your questions asked this evening. Questions can be asked via the chat, and then it will be answered at the end of our presentation. Otherwise, you can wait to ask your question either via the question chat box or by unmuting after the presentation. We will post a list of the questions and answers by the tail end of next week for your review. Thank you. So today we'll be covering the goals of our application. The application options include purchasing city-owned property without subsidy and requesting subsidy for home ownership development projects through Minneapolis Homes Financing. Tonight, we will also talk about what you need to apply, property options, and more details about the program pathways. In terms of our goals, applications will be reviewed against our current city goals, including looking at projects that are cost effective, meaning that they minimize subsidy requested. It maximizes residential density of the project site and develops city-owned vacant property and are also able to be easily duplicated. In addition, we want to make sure that the local affordable housing needs are met, including serving households below income restriction, projects that provide larger unit sizes, and we are also looking for developers who demonstrate historic rate of service and are robust marketing to Black, Indigenous, people of color, immigrant, and disabled households. In addition, we're looking for equitable wealth building opportunities, including projects that partner with the workforce development organizations. And we're also looking for unique design features, such as providing access to households with disabilities that meet sustainable design requirements above minimums. You can look at our program guidelines for more details about our program goals. In terms of the minimum qualifications to apply, we're looking for developers to demonstrate financial capacity for the project, have experience with completing a similar project that's being submitted in the application within the last 2 years. If you don't have that experience, what we would ask is that you pair with a developer or entity that has worked with us in the past, that can give you more guidance in terms of working with the city of Minneapolis and what is expected. In addition, we're looking for responsible developers. So making sure that there aren't any vacant buildings or rental license violations or tax delinquent properties that are tied to you. And in addition to that, if you are a current developer, we expect that you are performing in accordance with our current deadline guidelines. Well, for your application packet that you will submit, in order to apply for funding, you need to complete the application document. It includes a checklist of items you must submit. You need to show that you have construction financing. If you're applying for funding from the city, then our funding fills the gap, which we'll talk about a little bit later. We also expect that you complete an offer to purchase, showing documentation of your site control for private owned property sites, and a completed city pro forma if you are looking to develop for home ownership, or a cash flow document if you are looking to develop for rental. Construction plans don't need to have fully fleshed out architectural drawings at this time, but we do expect that you provide preliminary sketches for your application. In addition, the document to support the value, such as a BPO or broker price opinion, appraisal, or competitive market analysis, is also required. The city has multiple city-owned development sites and vacant structures available for purchase. The list of available sites are broken out by 1 to 3 unit development sites and 4+ unit sites. To purchase a city-owned site, you must submit the offer to purchase along with your applications. Prices are also listed. You may also apply for financing to develop privately owned sites or rehab privately owned vacant buildings for home ownership. You must also provide documentation of site control, such as property ownership records, purchase agreements, or similar documents. For the stabilization proposals, site control is not required, and we'll discuss that further in the presentation. And now we'll talk about our city-owned property sale program, and I'll turn it over to my colleague, Matthew Ramadan.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matthew Ramadan. I'm a senior project coordinator with the Residential Real Estate Development Work Unit under the City of Minneapolis's Community Plan and Economic Development. I work mainly with the acquisition and disposition of city-owned properties, either vacant structures or vacant land in which there is no request for city subsidy. Next slide, please. What this program does. We offer a pathway, as you can see, for acquisition in a way that makes it easier for people to be able to acquire properties and develop them with less experience. Our focus is providing a more streamlined process for acquiring city-owned vacant structures and/or lots without city subsidy. Please note that even without subsidy, you as a developer must still certify the household income of the occupants upon completion of the project. That's 80% area median income for a household of 4, which is right around $85,000 for a household of 4. The numbers are posted actually in this presentation for how much you would have to certify for a household of 2, 3, or 4 or more members of the household. 80% AMI for ownership projects, and that's 60% AMI for rental projects. And as you can also see, if you're not asking for subsidy, you can build rental projects on city-owned land. In those cases, you would need to make sure that at least 20% of the units meet the city's affordable rents. That's rents that do not exceed 60% AMI. Next slide, please. This is an example of a dilapidated 1-bedroom, 1-bath, single-family home in South Minneapolis that was purchased in 2017 for $30,000 by an owner-occupant applicant. They spent about another $200,000, as you can see, to add a second story on with their own licensed general contractor to create this 4-bedroom, 2-bath house. Next slide, please. Here's another owner-occupant new construction that was purchased on a double lot in North Minneapolis, so about a 10,000 square foot lot back in 2018 for only $2,800. They hired another BIPOC general contractor to build this 2,500 square foot 5-bedroom, 3-bath home with an attached garage for under $250,000 at that time. Next, please. Talking about city-owned property ownership housing. 10% of the units must be affordable to households with the income at or below 80% AMI, and the sales price must be set at a price affordable to a household at 70% AMI, as published by the city annually. Ownership housing in the near North and Cannon communities may be initially occupied by an affordable purchaser with no ongoing resale restrictions. Ownership housing throughout the rest of Minneapolis, that's South and Northeast Minneapolis, where we have available city-owned land, must be enrolled in a perpetually affordable housing model with a 30-year affordability term renewable upon each property sale. Basically, this means that if you're building as a developer in South or Northeast Minneapolis, that housing, even if you sell it to the first family is eligible, the next family, next family, next family for the next 30 years would also have to be at that same 80% AMI restriction. And there are ways that that's done. We have at least 2 entities that the city works with now, the City of Lakes Community Land Trust and Build Wealth Minnesota, that can help provide that perpetual affordable home ownership model. Again, rental housing, if you're building rental housing where 20% of the units are affordable to 60% AMI, that must be with the income at or below 60% AMI with an adjustment for tenant paid utilities as posted by the city annually. Affordability to rental units must be maintained for a 30-year term. Next slide, please. How to apply for Minneapolis Homes city-owned property. In addition to the information here, if you apply as an owner occupant, say you see one of these vacant boarded houses that we have our first showings tomorrow and then on Saturday, and you apply as an owner occupant, you'll need to self-certify that your household income is at 80% AMI or below. If you're applying to rehab the house and sell to owner occupants, at the time of sale, you have to certify that the household that you sold to meets that 80% AMI strategy. If you're planning to purchase in order to lease that property, again, you have to certify that those households meet 60% AMI. We're not saying that leasing cannot be done, but it's probably one of the lowest priorities with this program, really with the focus on home ownership with single family housing. Next slide, please. Here are the most recent rental income limits as established by the state of Minnesota. So you can see at 60% AMI, a household of 4 cannot earn more than $70,380 per year. And in this chart, for example, the most you could charge that 60% AMI household for a 3-bedroom unit is $1,949 a month. And these slides are going to be included and posted on the website, so you can see very easily what you have to work with. Our next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, the first open house inspections are starting tomorrow, and they'll be going all day, as you can see from the list, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. If you haven't already and you wish to participate in the open house inspections, you cannot just show up. You'll need to send a liability waiver, and that's on the website under the list of available properties, available structures. Send a liability waiver for each property that you wish to attend, and for any up to 3 people that would be part of your party, people attending the open house inspection. And that liability waiver can be emailed to me at matthew.ramadan@minneapolismn.gov. We will send you a reply email saying that yes, you are registered for either Thursday or Saturday for the particular addresses that you requested. Oh, I should also note that we have an asterisk by 2810 Penn Avenue North. We were in the process of acquiring that property, and as of today, we thought we'd have it acquired, but there was a glitch in our closing on the sale of this property. So 2810 Penn Avenue North will not be available for viewing either tomorrow or Saturday. If you're interested in that property still, send us an email and let us know, and we will notify you when that property becomes available. Next slide, please. I think that's all for me, and I'm turning it back over to Tara.
Thank you so much, Matthew. So yes, I will be talking about our Minneapolis Homes financing portion of our program, where we provide funding to developers for both the project gap in addition to the affordability gap. So city funds pay for a portion of a project's cost based on demonstrated need. Ownership projects have 2 types of funding: project gap and affordability gap. Project gap is the difference between the total cost to build a home and its fair market value, and affordability gap is the difference between the value of the home and what the home buyer can afford to pay. The rest of the project's cost is typically financed with permanent financing, such as a mortgage debt, cash invested by the owner, or funding from an affordable housing program or source. The full amount of assistance provided during construction and project gap is forgiven upon the sale to a home buyer or based on demonstrated need, if you're an owner occupant. Depicted on this slide here is are the income and affordable price and subsidy limits. Affordable price is determined using assumptions from the Met Council to determine the mortgage value an income eligible household can afford. Your application needs to demonstrate that the affordable price is met either naturally through market conditions or by requesting affordability gap subsidy to help an income eligible home buyer afford a mortgage at that value, with the city subsidy filling the affordability gap. The affordability gap combined with any project gap would need to be less than or equal to the maximum combined subsidy, which adjusts based upon the number of bedrooms of the unit created. Income limits that are based upon HUD assumptions and adjust based upon household size. So you can sell to any household size within that income limit. For example, a 3-bedroom home sold to an 80% AMI household, the affordable price is $254,500 and with a max subsidy of $195,000. Limits are updated annually, and the proportion of affordability gap and project gap within a project can change, but total subsidy combined cannot change after the council has approved our recommendation. The Minneapolis Homes financing subsidy includes some development requirements that projects should achieve. All projects need to meet the Green Communities criteria, which includes things like utilizing Energy Star appliances and efficient lighting. New construction 1 to 3 unit projects also need to meet the Department of Energy Zero Energy Ready requirements. If you're applying to do a funded project of 8 units or more, then the city's prevailing wage requirements kick in for contractors. And finally, additional compliance policies may apply depending on the amount of funding requested. And you can take a look at our manual on our website for more information. In addition to the subsidy limits on the previous slides, we are piloting a sustainability certification incentive up to 20% of total development costs for ultra efficient homes. Requirements to receive additional subsidy include that you meet all requirements for the Minneapolis Homes financing program, that the home is certified under one of 3 approved certifications listed above and achieves a home energy rating index score of 45 or less, respond to a survey to better understand barriers to sustainably certified housing in Minneapolis, commit to providing energy and use data annually for 5 years, allow for at least 2 dates for a tour of the home prior to move-in, and apply for all utility and city rebates that are applicable, including the Xcel Energy Solar Rewards and City of Minneapolis Korean Cost Share Program. We also encourage eligible applicants to apply for our CHODO, Community Housing Development Organization, or CBDO, Community-Based Development Organization certification. The city received federal funds for housing development, and a subset of those funds are restricted specifically for those above those previously mentioned organizations. So if you are approved and you're a CHODO or a CBDO, you may have access to that specific funding. And in my colleague's absence, Ryan Nestigen, who oversees our home buyer and homeowner support models, I will be speaking on his behalf about these items. So before I go into the models provided by the city, I would like to touch on some general qualifications for any applicant looking to purchase a home that was part of the Minneapolis Homes financing program. Any applicant must be at or below 80% AMI. They must be underwritten based on the HUD Part 5 requirements, which are linked to this page. So you'll have access to this material, and you can click on the link to get that information. And any home buyer must have a minimum investment into purchasing a home, which is 1% of the sales price, or $1,000, whichever is greater. So when listing a home for sale under either model, setting the sales price is different between the models, which are noted here. So the recapture model can be based off of the appraised value, and the perpetually affordable housing, or the PA model, requires, or PAH model, requires the home to be at a minimum of 20% below the appraised value and cannot exceed the affordable price that is linked here. And you can, again, click on this link once you have access. Okay. So the models that are offered by the City of Minneapolis for applicants are recapture, which was developed in partnership with North community members as a result of the city owning over 300 plus lots in North alone, which was due to the tornado from 2011 and the devastation of the foreclosure crisis that affected North Minneapolis heavily, and past racist policies like redlining that disproportionately affected the BIPOC communities of North Minneapolis. PAH, or Perpetually Affordable Housing, the city co-created this model in response to resident feedback for additional perpetually affordable housing options to protect communities from displacement due to lack of affordability. It was created after multiple community engagement and listening sessions over the course of 2019, and over 20 of those, we've had over 20 sessions with community members, totaling to over 1,000 participants giving their feedback. In terms of the specifics of the recapture model, it limits the amount of received to an applicant to no more than 15% of the sales price. The minimum to be provided to a home buyer is $1,000. And that's in terms of the affordability gap. The developer must state the amounts of funds provided to a home buyer through this model on the pro forma at application. The amount provided to a home buyer is needs-based and is secured with 0% deferred loan with a note and mortgage signed at closing. The loan is due on sale of the property from the net proceeds. This slide here shows an example of the recapture model. So if a new construction home was developed in North Community, this home may be appraised for around $285,000. The affordable price for someone between 61 to 80% AMI is down to $272,000, making the need for the home buyer assistance to be about $13,000 in order to purchase that home. The greater the need of the project gap is the difference in the development cost and the appraisal value of the home. Again, this gap is provided as a zero interest loan to fund the construction and forgiven upon sale to the first home buyer. So as for the perpetually affordable housing model, this home is sold at a discounted sales price of 20% or more. The home is enrolled in one of two equity sharing models that Matthew previously mentioned, selected by the developer in the application process. And that can be either the City of Lakes Community Land Trust model, which limits the value increase due to the home buyer sale at 25%, which is secured with a 99-year lease. Or you can go with the City of Minneapolis model, which is also administrated, by Build Wealth. This limits the value increase of 2% annually, which is secured with a declaration of restrictive covenants. Developers or applicants are also able to have the option for a new model, say like a cooperative, and that would need to be stated in the application. The City of Minneapolis model requires a qualified administrator to be selected, and if with this model being chosen at application. The two QAs for the city is that City of Lakes Community Land Trust and Build Wealth, and there are fees associated with both of these entities and models, and it needs to be listed on the pro forma. Okay, this is an example of a perpetually affordable home model. This is a new construction 3-bedroom home developed in Nokomis. where the average values can range at least from $350,000 for a 3-bedroom home. These homes provide a significant investment due to the nature of the area and the prices associated with that area and other areas like it for an equity sharing formula that creates that affordability and access in most markets, especially in this current market right now. So for example, this particular project could apply for $108,000 in our program in terms of subsidy to make this $350,000 home purchase affordable at 80% AMI. And if it was for a household of 60% or 40% AMI, the subsidy investment could increase even more because the unit would be restricted to those buyers at those lower income tiers. Okay, so the last model that I will go over is the stabilization, which is to be used to stabilize households at or below 80% that are currently renting and or own a home but are at a high risk of displacement. So these stabilization funds can be used to either purchase a naturally affordable home and complete any deferred maintenance on that home, or provide affordability gap financing to low-income home buyers to purchase this higher price home. Developers can also apply for a pool of funds to support a group of applicants. If that is the approach that a developer or applicant is going to take, then what we need framed is a description of the groups of applicants the program intends to serve and provide a strategy to match homes with home buyers if ownership is the route that's being taken. Under this program, any home sold to a home buyer will be enrolled in the city-approved perpetually affordable housing model that was previously discussed. In terms of next steps, the applications are due Monday, March 13th at 1 p.m. and you can submit your application packets to mplshomes@Minneapolis and mn.gov. Proposals are submitted to neighborhood organizations for a 45-day review and comment period. Expected presentations to City Council, recommendation and award is in the second quarter of this year. Developers that sign contracts for purchasing the city-owned property must also be sure to pay a good faith deposit of 10% of the purchase price or $2,000, whichever is greater. And these units are expected to be available in 2024 through 2025. If you have additional questions that you need clarified after this presentation and after tapping into the resources on our website pages, you can reach out to Matthew Ramadan for a city-owned unfunded property purchase, myself for the Minneapolis Homes financing portion, and for the stabilization portion, Ryan Nestigen. That's about it. So thank you so much for your time today and attention. And if you have any questions that you may have, we are happy to take them. Feel free to either write them in the chat or unmute yourself.
And Tara, I'm not sure if people can actually speak in this meeting. So if you can submit your questions in the chat. We're moderating it, and I've responded to some of the questions. And then I've also, I'm going to kind of go down the list of some themes that are sticking out, and then I'll pose the questions to either you or Matthew to respond. So one question that's come up a couple times has been a little bit more detailed explanation of how the max subsidy works. Tara, would you mind taking a first attempt at that?
How the subsidy would so could you repeat the question?
Yeah, I think the question is, so we have our two different forms of subsidy, and that gets combined into a max subsidy. So just clarifying how that works.
I see. Okay, so we have, yes, we have the affordability gap, which is funding that's provided to the home buyer to ensure or assist with the home being affordable to the demographic that we are intending to serve. So that's 80% AMI and below. Home buyers are able to receive up to $7,500 in home buyer assistance with most of our projects. And then the other subsidy or gap that we assist developers with, it is the project gap. So this is the difference between the appraised value and then the amount that is needed to complete the project. So for, and we don't provide the total amount of funding needed to get this project off the ground. We are a supplemental resource. So this is why we stress the importance of making sure that you have approvals from other resources to make sure that the project is financially feasible. And then we come in and we fill that gap that is needed that you weren't able to get from financing institutions. That is then forgiven once it's sold to a homeowner. I hope I answered that question. I provided more clarity.
Yeah, and if you have additional follow-up, please feel free to submit another question. And then just to respond real quickly, there's a question about if the presentation will be online. So it will be posted to the city's web page and the Minneapolis Homes web page that was included in the notification that was sent out by late next week. And then Tara, can you put up the last slide with your contact information so people have that while they're asking questions?
Certainly. Let's see here.
And then Matthew, the next question is for you. Can you explain the open house process? And basically, sure, like what people need to do and how to contact you and things of that nature. Those were the kind of questions.
Well, here's the good news. I'm still taking emails, even as of this evening, for folks who want to get involved in the open house process. Basically, you're filling out a waiver which identifies on that sheet. It's like a one-page sheet that says, this is the house that we'd like to take a look at on either Thursday or Saturday. And you know what the sale price is. The prices are set. You're going to come in on either Thursday or Saturday and do a brief walkthrough. It's about 30 to 45 minutes that you'll have available for each house on the list, or each house that you're interested in at those specific times that are listed either on Thursday or Saturday. Because you've got that waiver filled out, it basically says that you know you're entering at your own risk. These houses are not, move-in ready. They are dilapidated. You will find holes in the floor. You'll find things hanging from the ceilings. You'll find sometimes bad air quality. They may have had asbestos or may have lead paint, things like that. If you want to wear a mask, you're perfectly fine too. But you're coming into houses that don't have any heat, don't have any light, and you're coming in with your flashlight and taking a look in many cases to see what you would want to do with this house. And if it's something that's within your purview or experience of being able to rehab. Once you have a chance to go through these houses, you then make the decision if you'd like to come back. We will take the emails of everybody who's gone through the open house inspection, and send them out a second email saying, that was only 35 to 45 minutes that this week. But if you need more time to come back with your licensed general contractor to put together a complete walkthrough, a complete scope of work, excuse me, you are welcome to come back on this date to do that, and the house will be open for you to do that. Anybody who does not attend an open house cannot submit for applying. We have investors who say, we'll just buy everything. That's not how the program works. Unless you actually came out or somebody from your team came out and looked at the house and walked through the house, we're not looking for people just to come and try to buy a portfolio and really take away opportunities for home ownership here locally. So I hope that answers the question, but it's really about showing up and being diligent about walking through and getting an idea of exactly what you're going to be dealing with.
Great. Thank you, Matthew. Tara, this next one's for you. So one of the questions that's come through a couple of times is if financing is available through Minneapolis Homes for rental.
If you are doing an owner occupied type of development or project, you can come in and live on one side and choose to rent out the other side. If you decide to do that, you need to make sure that the rental side is a perpetually affordable unit that has its own income limits associated with that. So it is possible to rent it out, but that's for an owner occupied situation. We're looking to establish more ownership units. So if the idea is to come in and to develop a property strictly for rental units exclusively, then that's this isn't the right program.
And even that owner occupant would still have to meet the income guidelines.
Correct.
Yes.
Right, so they still have to be under 80% AMI themselves before they could actually apply for, if it's a city-owned property, for sure. But any subsidy that would be available would be for meet those income guidelines, whether it's city-owned or not.
Just be really clear with one point. So if you're applying for financing and you're intending to do a duplex, you're living in one unit and the other unit is a rental unit, you can only apply for financing for the owner occupied unit. So our financing through Minneapolis Homes is based on the unit size and the number of units that you're applying to build. So if you're applying for 2 units, but one of them is rental and one of them is ownership, that ownership unit is the only one you can apply for subsidy, and the owner occupant has to meet the income requirements of the program. The next question was about just providing a little bit more information about the PAH partners and how that partnership works. Tara, would you mind answering that one?
Yes, certainly. So yes, so right now we've identified 2 qualified administrators. So it's the City of Lakes Community Land Trust and Build Wealth. And they provide with a fee that must be included on the pro forma. They can make sure that your home is enlisted in a perpetually affordable housing model, so that you can qualify to get those deeper subsidies. CLCLT, or City of Lakes Community Land Trust, their model requires that 99-year lease on the property itself, where it has to remain affordable for that period of time. And then for the city, perpetually affordable, City of Minneapolis perpetually affordable housing model. Let's see. That has restrictive covenants that's associated with it during the sale or during the home buyer purchase that is triggered if that were to be turned over to be sold to another individual, because we again want to make sure that we are keeping that home affordable and we're not displacing individuals who actually and families that need access to those types of homes. Both administrators, the CLCLT is able to do both the 99, their own model, as well as the City of Minneapolis model, and Build Wealth is also able to do the City of Minneapolis model.
Thank you. Matthew, there's been a couple questions about construction financing. And one of them is asking about if we're providing financing before or after their new construction loan financing. And then another one is asking about what type of loans are required, and if there are any lenders that we're aware of. Would you mind trying to answer? That was a number of questions, and I'm happy to repeat them for you if it's easier.
Okay, so construction financing, there's an expectation, whether you're looking for either the subsidy, Minneapolis Homes financing, or the purchasing the properties without city subsidy, that you would be bringing the bulk of your construction financing to the table. In the case for the unfunded, that means 100% of your financing is coming, with none coming from the city of Minneapolis. But even in the Minneapolis Homes financing subsidy programs, the bulk of the construction financing should be secured prior to you're applying to the city of Minneapolis. Our construction financing is last money in, and again, it's to fill that gap between the cost of developing that structure, whether it's a single family 1, 2, or 3 unit home, and the what you can sell the property for reasonably in the area. And so we don't provide construction financing as the city, but only, as I said, the gap financing to make up that difference in the cost, or what it costs between and what you could possibly sell the property for. We also don't recommend at this time any particular lenders. We did have a list in some years back of different lenders who were familiar with the program. Unfortunately, many of those lenders have changed, or people have changed hands, but we would really strongly encourage you to look at those lenders in the Twin Cities area who are most familiar with small business type lending, who are most familiar with construction financing for emerging developers, and work with them. Was there another part of that question?
No, I think you covered it. Thank you. Tara, this one's for you. It's a question about the different funding sources that we are leveraging to finance projects through Minneapolis Homes. Can you speak to what some of those sources are? And then the follow-up is if a developer can come with other public sources of financing as part of their project.
Okay, yeah, so we leverage from a variety of sources, so city, state, federal, county in some cases, to use cumulatively to provide to developers based off of the type of project that you're doing. Again, if you are CHODO or CDBO, different resources or funding buckets have sometimes specific requirements. So we try our best to match your project and your intent and who it's going to serve in the end with those funding buckets. What was the second part of the question, Kevin? Sorry.
So the question was about like what sources we're leveraging, and then if it's allowed for developers to bring other sources of public financing and have that as a source on their project.
Okay, yes, yes, we do encourage developers, if you are able to tap into those resources on your own, we highly encourage that. Sometimes though, a caveat to that is if you have, say with, for example, Minnesota Housing, you've obtained funding from them, then we would be restricted in providing say an additional amount of funding from our funding buckets to now apply to your project. So we would just look elsewhere within our portfolio of sources to support your project if you were approved after the application process.
Thank you. And then there was a follow-up question about financing sources available. And so the question asked if Twin Cities Land Bank is a source that's available, and yes, so that's still an option. You're allowed to partner with Twin Cities Land Bank as your financing source. We don't restrict who you partner with, and we also have seen that the Greater Minnesota Housing Fund, or GMHF, is financing more affordable housing projects. To Matthew's point, though, we're not necessarily directing people to any specific lender because we don't want to steer you towards any organization. So we do see developers that partner with many different lenders. And then there was a question about zoning variances, and I'm going to take this just because I've worked on a number of projects with them. So if you are aware that your project, when you're applying, is not going to meet zoning requirements, that can cause problems from an application process. And the reason that is the case is when we receive applications, it goes through a review process that doesn't just involve our Minneapolis Homes team, but involves our land use staff and additional staff within CPED. And we have to route an approval before we can even go to city council to get their approval that says from our zoning staff that the project is proposed seems feasible and seems to be in compliance with the minimum zoning regulations. So if you're proposing something that you know from the outset does not meet the requirements, you can do that, and you would want to make sure that you're being really clear in your application that you're aware that a zoning variance is required. But it's best to try to make your project's design fit within the zoning requirements of the lot or lots that you're proposing to build on. So I'm not saying it's impossible, and zoning variances are things that certainly do happen, but it is going to lengthen the timeline from when we can approve your project to when you can start construction. And then there's a question about doing commercial and residential, and if that is allowed on projects. So mixed use projects. Tara, do you want to take that one?
Certainly. Right now, the focus is again on living units. So I would say that we are not we're not focused on mixed use or commercial at this time.
Here, can I jump in, Tara?
Okay.
So to Tara's point, our financing program is specific to ownership units. So if you were applying to build a project that has commercial and residential uses, we can only fund the residential uses. And that would be for those affordable ownership projects. So you would need to be able to demonstrate sources to pay for the commercial property. And then we're also going to want to evaluate the sources and uses based on the different units that you're financing for the construction, and then also looking at just the overall feasibility of the project from like a pro forma and then cash flow perspective. If you're looking at doing mixed use, I'd recommend reaching out to us directly, just because it's more complicated, and it would be helpful to have a little bit more detail on kind of what you're proposing, so we can direct you a little bit more closely. And then there's a question about how long a developer has to deliver a project. So basically, how long do they have to construct and build a project? Tara, can you answer that question?
Certainly. Well, usually when so for example, if you awarded a project, a funding for a project, say this year, we would expect for that project to be completed either in 2024 or the latest by 2025. So I would say about a max of 24 months in order to get that project complete. The preference is 12 to 18 months for the city. And if you go beyond that time, you'd be required to file for an extension, which has a cost associated with it.
Thank you. There's a question about geotechnical or soil reports and if they are available for free. Tara, do you want to take that one?
Certainly. In the past, the city was able to provide those soil reports for developers. However, the vendor that we were working with previously changed hands, and as a result, we don't have access to obtaining those reports on behalf of the developers now. So it is now the responsibility of the developers to seek that out for themselves.
And so if you're applying, you would want to include the cost of obtaining that report in your pro forma when you're submitting that. So keep that in mind. And then there's a question about partnerships, and this one's specific to Chodo's, but in general, there were a number of questions about developers and partnerships, and if somebody doesn't have experience or doesn't have the general contractor's license, or is looking to partner with an organization to do the income qualification. Matthew, do you think you can actually take that question?
Sure. Yes, and this would apply whether you're talking about financing or not or non-finance projects. So say, for instance, you see a vacant house that you'd like to move into, but you're not a general contractor, you don't have any experience doing it. We don't really encourage do-it-yourself type of things that could take forever and maybe or may not even get done at all. You would want to apply looking for an experienced general contractor to come in as your general contractor to rehab that house or to build that new construction. And that experience that general contractor would bring to the table would add to your application as experience. Maybe you're talking about new construction and you're working with an architect who's done this before with the city of Minneapolis. That architect's experience, along with a licensed experienced general contract, would add to your experience. So we really want to see, we don't want to encourage do-it-yourself. We do want to see, because that experience, because that's part of the criteria that we judge all applications by. Keep in mind that we have a limited number of vacant structures, a limited number of vacant lots, and you may have more than one person applying for that lot. So if you're coming in with no experience and no partnering with an experienced partner, it's going to make it you're less competitive at the end of the day, as far as somebody who comes in who says, I recognize I don't have experience, but look, I've got an experienced general contractor who's done X number of houses with the city of Minneapolis, and they're going to do this house for me.
Thank you, Matthew. Then the next question is actually about city-owned properties, and if the price after rehab requires that it be sold at 20% below appraised value.
No, actually, I don't know if that it's necessarily set at 20% below appraised values. There are sales price limits based on the number of bedrooms that the finished house will have. As long as it's within those sales price limits, are also posted on the website. It does not have to be, it might appraise even higher, but as long as the sales price is within the sales price limit for that number of bedrooms, you can rehab a house, within those numbers and sell it as long as it's within that sales price limit.
And expand on that a little bit. So our financing program has two options. So the perpetually affordable housing option that Tara spoke to, homes are required to be sold at the affordable price that's listed. However, in a scenario where it's not perpetually affordable, homes would be sold at the fair market value. And so, as Matthew was saying, there's like a target affordable price for when you're applying, especially if you're applying for financing, where we want to see that you can meet that affordable price. But if you're not doing a perpetually affordable housing sale method, then you're not required to sell at that affordable price. Once it's listed, we would require you to sell at the fair market value. And then there's a question, Tara, about how we evaluate applications. And actually, Matthew, I think this is more for you. If somebody is looking at doing a development and they're looking at applying and not asking for subsidy, do we evaluate that as part of our application process?
Yes and no. Obviously, if there are two applicants and one is coming along and asking for a subsidy, and another one's not for the same for the same property, that could be a consideration if the other one has full financing, and neither one is talking about doing something that's perpetually affordable. But one just says, I have all the money I need, I don't need subsidy, and the other one says, I need subsidy, because we have a limited pool of funds, and those funds could be directed possibly to another project that might need the subsidy. However, the other things that we look at, as I mentioned earlier, are experience, the secured financing, the plan for increasing home ownership. Because again, I'll use an example. One person comes in and they want to buy a house that they want to make a rental property, and they're not asking for subsidy. Another person comes in and says, we want to buy this house, but we need subsidy in order to make it home ownership. Even though that one is coming in for no subsidy, they're saying we don't need their money. They're not helping us meet the goals of the city of Minneapolis by, converting that single family home into a rental property. The one who's asking for subsidy in this case would be the preferred, because they're meeting our city's goal of increasing home ownership, particularly among Black, Indigenous people of color, and immigrant communities. So not asking for subsidy is not always a criteria to get you more points.
Exactly. So some other questions are coming in, so I'm just taking a quick look at it. But Tara, while I'm doing that, do you think you could actually go to the Minneapolis Homes financing page? So I think it might be helpful just to show people on the screen where some of the materials are.
Okay.
You might want to stop sharing your screen while you do that.
Okay.
Because there's a couple of questions about what type of documentation is needed, where can I go find training materials, where are things listed, and I think if we just show the web page real quick, that might help alleviate some of that. And let's do the financing program first, and then Matthew, we can have Tara then pull up the city-owned property, and then we'll do that real quick too. So if you want to, so on this page, before Tara does anything, so we're talking about two programs right now. The city-owned property is the one Matthew referenced. And actually, Tara, if you want to click on that, and Matthew, if you just want to kind of, as Tara scrolls through, explain what's on this page and what people need to know. Did we lose you, Matthew?
I got you. I just realized I had muted for a second.
No worries.
Okay. On this page, this is, again, we list the properties that are available with the city For the vacant properties, first we list all the vacant land first. And then you see our list of vacant structures that we have available. It's just about eight or nine vacant structures that we have available. As I said, with the exception of 2810 Penn Avenue North, all the rest are going to be available for viewing starting tomorrow at 8 o'clock. And again, I'll be up for another couple of hours, I'm guessing, taking waivers that are for tomorrow. But all day tomorrow will be out showing those properties, starting with 40, 48, 31st, and going through 3246 Oliver Avenue North, and then repeating that on Saturday. You do not have to come to both. You can come to one or the other, or if you think that you'd like to, get in and do both, that's fine as well. But then we also have things that kind of show, examples of, on this page, previous applications that have been done. We have our program manual that kind of goes through all of the things that are going to be required when you're rehabbing a house. We have our required scope of work, which is very important because a lot of times people want to just say, well, I got my general contractor, he's going to put together a bid. They should use this form because we want to compare apples to apples. If somebody comes in and says, I did my own and I didn't use that form, it doesn't help us to be able to compare that against other properties. And that form breaks down to everything from the basement to the roof, how much it's going to cost, what you're going to do with it, if you're going to put a new roof on, if you're going to put, the type of tile that you'll use in the flooring in the house, whether you're finished the basement or not. All those things are required to be filled out. And that way, and I tell people all the time, think about quality over trying to just get it done. Because again, this scope of work is shared not only with internally with our staff, but the people in the neighborhoods in which these houses are located will have a chance to see that scope of work as well. And if they see somebody coming with a cheap, vinyl, rolled flooring, and another person coming in with tile or replacing or bringing back the hardwood as opposed to carpet, the neighborhoods, they take a stand and say, we want to see quality. So think about quality as you're working on your scope. Don't play it cheap. Don't play the people in the city cheap. We do have that offer to purchase as that kind of talks about what it looks like, and you'll see those samples. Whether you're talking about home ownership or rental, there are the pro formas and the cash flows for that as well. But we really encourage you to get familiar with that site before March the 10th, even to the point of doing a mock-up, so you got an idea what it might look like. We're here to help, and it would be helpful for us to know that people actually are reading what we have available and are able to submit a strong application.
And one thing I want to point out, if you're looking at the materials and you're getting stuck, Tara, if you'll scroll up just a little bit. Oh, not quite that far.
Oh, sorry.
So where it says application, yep, on the resources. So this link right here, and it's also found on the Minneapolis Homes page. It is from last year, so some of the things will look just a teeny bit different. But Matthew and I did a walkthrough last year of like, what do you need to apply? What are the different items? Walked through the web page and then looked at the different pro formas and cash flows and explained some key things that you needed to know. Especially if you're new and have not applied before, I would recommend watching that application walkthrough to familiarize yourself, because it really is going to help ground you in what's required. And then Tara, do you want to go to the Minneapolis Homes financing page?
Certainly. Right. Yep, so this is the Minneapolis Homes financing page where you can apply for financing both for that project and affordability gap. And here are a list of our training materials. So there's a video that we have on the 1 to 20 unit ownership for new construction and rehab. And then we have a presentation that you can also look at and follow through on the video if you choose to do that. We also have the stabilization video, and as well as the training slides and the application walkthrough that Kevin just mentioned. In terms of additional training resources, this is especially for prospective developers, folks who are wanting to get into the space. These resources are immensely helpful for those who are wanting to work with the city to obtain funding in the future. So we have our DTOP program, where it's a small developers technical assistance program, where you participate with a group of individuals to learn more about what the program has to offer to better equip you with knowledge to move forward in this space. Then we have the Urban Land Institute Real Estate and Diversity Initiative, so ULI Ready. This is also a good program that folks can participate. It's geared toward BIPOC individuals, so Black, Indigenous, people of color, immigrants, disabled, to apply and be a part of a cohort as well, where you learn with experienced developers, and you are able to also kind of run a simulation of a hypothetical development on a specific site, and you go through like the necessary like soil evaluations, environmental review, market research, structure development, financing, all of those aspects that are critically important to getting a project off the ground and successfully completed. In addition, there's the list developers of color capacity building initiative, where you can apply to take place to develop your project for a small or new developer coming in, and they can help provide you with resources and be a guide to even probably help you apply or tap into resources to make you a strong applicant even for our program as well. These are the program documents too that you can look at. So our program manual specific to Minneapolis Homes financing, the program guidelines associated with this sector of the program, the sustainability certification funding incentive, and our subsidy and affordable sales price limits to be your guide in the application process. And for the perpetually affordable housing land trust models, this is the information that you'll need to also look at and tap into to get a sense and familiarize yourself with that model if that is something that you're interested in doing when you develop your site. And as far as the application is concerned, this is the application here. You can fill it out and print it out. And in terms of the documentation, this is a list of what some of the things that we are looking for in order to ensure that we have a complete application packet. The CHODO that I mentioned and the CDBO certification for that specific bucket of funding that is just exclusively for this. If that's something that you're interested in, you can also take a look at these forms. Here's a list out again, same as Matthew's portion on his website. The same 1 to 3 unit property list outs inventories, and 4 to 20 unit property inventory that we currently have for sale. And again, this is the offer to purchase for the 1 to 3 and the 4 to 20. So as you can see, they're specific. This is the pro forma that you'll also need to have completed when you're submitting your application. And if you were a participant with us in the past, just providing that project timeline. We also have well, once you're approved and awarded funding, these will be additional resources that you can also look at as you walk through the process from start to finish in terms of the documentation that is required from us as the city, from you, the developer, to make sure that the process is moving along and we're meeting all of the requirements within our guideline in this program. And here is my contact information. You can email me, that is preferred. And then we can get in contact if you have more detailed questions, or you can email our team as a whole, Minneapolis Homes. .com. So, yep, and yeah.
Great. So we have a number of additional questions, so I'm going to try to run through them. Just as an FYI, so during this, I was publicly responding to questions, but a significant amount have come in, and so we're responding to them in this fashion, and then we'll also post written responses to them when we post this recording and the responses next week. So we will make sure to get additional responses out if you're not seeing your question answered in written format. So one of the questions, Tara, is would funds be available prior to construction or at the end of the project?
It can be available prior to construction. The most critical aspect that's needed is that you, with the Minneapolis Homes financing portion, is that your contract with us as the city for the site or sites that you've been awarded and funded to is fully executed and completed. So this is a process where you'd be working with our construction management team to make sure that you provide the necessary documentation to fulfill that aspect of making sure that the site is ready to move forward in terms of bidding and things like that. Working with our project coordinator who will request specific documentation for you with the financing of your financial closing to purchase your property, as well as the real estate team who will also be working with you to make sure that the financial closing is completed. The project coordinator is also going to be a part of the process of helping making sure that the contracts are signed and that the funding for which you've been awarded is fully drawn up with your title company so that you can close. Once you close, then you're able to request funds after those deliverables have been met. In a nutshell.
What Tara was framing is kind of part of the process that's required. So when you're have a project that's receiving financing through the city, there are different staff that you work with, and funds become available once you complete a financial closing. So you may have some pre-development costs that are not covered by the city's financing, but you do not have to wait till the very end of your project to request funding from the city. You can submit draws to us on a every 30-day basis for your costs, and you can submit your first draw or disbursement request to the city immediately after when you close on the financing with us. But you may have some pre-development costs that you do have to carry with other resources before funding becomes available. Let's see, what other questions do we have? All right, there's quite a bit, so I'm trying to kind of clump them together in the topics. So there's a question of what type of documentation you need to be able to buy a home. If that's so the documentation that Tara framed on our webpage and Matthew framed is if you're purchasing a city-owned property. If that question is more about being a first-time home buyer, we do have some additional resources on our webpage. And Tara, if you want to go back one slide, or sorry, one page. And then on the home buyer resources section, if you're a first-time home buyer and you're just getting started, I would recommend, so if you scroll up a little bit, Tara, there's a list of organizations that provide homebuyer education, and then also provide just general homeownership training. And you can find those providers on the Homeownership Center's website, which is our partner that's listed there by the home stretch. And then there's a question about if we only allow for 20 units is a maximum. Matthew, do you want to speak to that question?
Sure. We anticipate that once you get above 20 units, you might be working with another one of our work units that's residential finance. So our missing middle is generally between 4 and 20. However, if you're looking at more, you're probably ready to step up to the next level, and that's working with our residential finance, which is the higher density housing. And again, depending upon the zoning that's available for that site, that's consideration. Because even though we advertise 4 to 20, it doesn't necessarily, because we'd like to see that kind of density happen, it doesn't necessarily mean that zoning is available for that at that time. So we strongly encourage you that if you see a site that you think you'd like to do 4 to 20, to reach out Minneapolis 311 to zoning and say, is this doable here if I wanted to do 10, 15, or 24 unit project on this site? Please make sure that you're checking that out and be aware of there may be challenges when as the higher density that you're going for because most of our sites were originally single family home sites. Some are contiguous with others so that you might be able to have 2 or 3 lots put together in order to make a higher density project, but that doesn't necessarily mean that zoning is going to say yes to that. It's very important that you check with zoning to make sure this is something that can be done.
And further Matthew's point, so our lot list does reference the general dwelling unit sizes that would be allowable. So it may say 1 to 3 DU on the lot list, and that means that's a single family lot that would possibly allow for 1 to 3 dwelling units, but that's going to depend on the design of the property or the proposal. So you may be meeting the dwelling unit requirement, but then your proposal may be too large for the lot or have other zoning requirements. So it's always good if you're looking at building a property to be mindful of those requirements. Matthew, a question of if contractors need to be from Minneapolis only.
No, as long as they're licensed in the state of Minnesota to do work, they can be from anywhere. I mean, they can be even from Wisconsin, as long as they're licensed to do business in the state of Minnesota. So we've had general contractors from out of state to work in the state of Minnesota for years, but they do need to have a license as a licensed general contractor, and that we do a lookup with the state of Minnesota to make sure that they're a licensed general contractor in good standing. Again, that's part of the criteria. So a licensed general contractor in good standing with the state of Minnesota, that we can do a lookup and find them existing there. Make sure that you do have somebody like that when you apply.
Great, thank you. There's a question about places to look for financing for emerging developers. So we mentioned the land bank. That's one that some developers use. Another one is Greater Metropolitan, the Greater Minnesota Housing Fund, or GMHF, has a emerging developers of color financing initiative, as does Twin Cities LISC. So that's the Local Initiative Support Corporation. They have a developer of color initiative, and then the Family Housing Fund has a building equity and small multifamily homeownership project as well that provides some down payment assistance. So just to repeat that: Land Bank, Twin Cities, GMHF or Greater Minnesota Housing Fund, Twin Cities LISC, LISC, and Family Housing Fund are organizations that are providing some form of financing for emerging and small developers. And then the city also has its developer of training course.
And I would also encourage developers to check with their local bank. If you're already, as a general contractor, as a developer, your local bank might be involved in the program. Share the website with them. If they're not, please encourage them to reach out to us and find out how they can be involved with us.
There was a question about the timeline. So it's my understanding is if you're awarded one of these properties, you would not take possession until 2024. Is that correct? And Matthew, this is specifically about acquiring city-owned unfunded property.
With city-owned unfunded property, whether it's a vacant structure or a vacant piece of land, the process is a little bit quicker. As I said, it's a little more streamlined. And so once the recommendations are made, we can make the recommendations usually within 90 to 120 days from the time that you're applying to we make recommendations to City Council. So in effect, you could take possession this year. You wouldn't have to wait till 2024. Normally, because we have financing that takes a little bit longer, it might be stretched out further. But with our vacant structures and our vacant land where you're not asking for subsidy, we can realistically hope to get recommendations into City Council this spring, summer, and taking possession anytime that you have the ability to close shortly thereafter.
Great, thank you, Matthew. So the next question, Tara, is if they need to pay an architect for drawing or sketches for the application, or if like preliminary sketches or drawings are allowed.
Yes, preliminary sketches and drawings are allowed, just to give us an idea or a sense of what your scope is going to look like. What we're looking for is a vision of what you want the end result to be. So if you're not in a space to be able to obtain professional schematics from an architect, providing just basic drawings that we are able to perceive and understand to convey what it is you are looking to develop in your application is fine.
Can I add a little bit to that?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Keep in mind, folks, that your applications, we send these out to the public. So if people do hand-drawn drawings that look like they're hand-drawn drawings, you might be judged for what you're talking about building compared to what somebody else that went online and got a free set of drawings. Sometimes there are resources out there that don't cost that much more. So if you know you want to build a single-family house, oftentimes you can go to free drawings or freehouseplans.com and find the house that you're looking to. It might not be exactly what you're looking for, but it might be close. That's better than having turned into something and folks seeing something like, what? Who turned this in? You remember to put your best foot forward, because your application is going to be judged against everybody else's in this, and it is competitive.
And the FH, the Fix Up Family Fund, they actually have, I think they rolled out basic schematics for folks who are wishing to build a home that you can access for free. So I would encourage you also to go on that site, just piggybacking off of what Matthew just said.
And Tara, do you want to pull back up your contact information?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. Let's see here.
So it's on the screen so people can see it.
It's down here. Okay.
And while you're doing that, I'll answer the next question. So there's a question about if the ULI's Real Estate Diversity Initiative or READY program in DTAP are seen as positive on an application. And so if you're a developer that's newer or new and you're participating in those programs, that's definitely something you're going to want to include on your application. But we do have a requirement that you're either like partnering with the organization that has experience or working with a general contractor that has experience, or you yourself have experience. But if you're a newer developer and you're taking part in those avenues, that's definitely going to look favorably on your application. And there's a question about like what is required on the pro forma when submitting it. And if the cost of materials and labor needs to be included on that, Matthew, would you mind taking that question?
If the cost of labor and materials?
Correct.
Yes, because we're looking for the complete development cost, whether you're talking about a rehab or a new construction. We want to know that this is what it's going to cost for the project, and to give a reasonable expectation that you have secured financing to meet that. Whether we're talking about Minneapolis Homes, city with land sale purchases, or Minneapolis Homes financing. So you should include all your costs in there, not just the material costs, but the total development costs, whether it's rehab or new construction.
Thank you. There's a question about if a studio is considered a unit. Studio is considered a unit, and if you're looking at doing a homeownership studio, the amount of financing varies by the size of the unit, so you'll want to take a look at the subsidy limits for that. And then there was a question about the, sorry, I'm trying to find it. There's a bunch of them in here. Oh, here we go. I have a buyer in mind that is already income qualified at 40% AMI, and I partner with City of Lakes Community Land Trust to make so that this buyer is able to purchase the home. Tara, can you answer that question?
Oh, most definitely. That's a prime example of the type of household income that we're looking to help. And also that at 40% AMI, I think I heard Kevin say that's a very attractive income level that we want to help. And that is a qualified administrator, CLCLT, to assist specifically with perpetually affordable housing to meet that metric, to help that household. So for sure, if you already have a buyer in mind, they're able, maybe in some capacity, to show, well, I don't even think you would need all of that, but specifying that you're in your application helping a household obtain ownership at 40%. Yeah, that's who we're looking to serve. So,
and one thing to add onto that is, so if the applicant is the household and they're partnering with the land trust to have them build the home, that is allowed. We do require that properties be affirmatively marketed, which generally speaking means that they're listed on the MLS and they're available to the public for purchase. So if you're, let's say you're a developer and you've identified a buyer and you want to build a home for them, our program doesn't allow you to seek financing and build a home for them. It's like a pre-identified buyer if that's not that buyer is not the applicant, and you're not like the partner supporting them. So effectively, you as a developer can't apply, take a developer fee, have a pre-identified buyer, and only sell it to that pre-identified buyer, because then that doesn't meet the affirmative marketing. And if you have more questions about that, or if you have a specific scenario, it's probably good if we connect one of them. Okay, there's been more questions coming in. Does an income qualifying caretaker employed by the developer's real estate company qualify as owner occupied? So owner occupancy means that they take title ownership to the property. So if it's like a caretaker that's not actually owning the unit and it's the real estate company that's owning the unit, then that would not be considered owner occupancy. And then there's a question, Matthew, if subcontractors must be from Minnesota, for example, plumbing, electrical, and HVAC, Can you answer that one?
Yeah, same thing as the general contractor. As long as they're licensed to do work in the state of Minnesota, they can act as subcontractors to that general contractor from out of state. But they do have to be able to be licensed in Minnesota because they will have to be able to pull permits. And city inspections will be looking for those permits from folks licensed to do work in Minnesota.
And then somebody was asking about the website that you were sharing, Tara, so I just responded to that. That was the Family Housing Fund.
Yeah, I have the website pulled up here.
And I responded and published it so that everybody had the web page too.
Okay.
Oh, and here's a good one. Can a developer submit the same sketches and proposals for multiple locations, or does it reflect negatively to submit multiple proposals? Tara, do you want to answer that?
That's a definite yes. So a part of, the goal of the program is, you're already dealing with a lot of complicated other things. So if you can make, if you can construct a project that is affordable, that is something that is repeatable, it makes it simpler for you. It makes it simpler for us. It doesn't. It's not an indictment against you if you choose to apply that to multiple sites.
Can I also make a little add here? Because I get a lot of times the feedback from the neighborhoods. The only thing we would suggest is that you might change up the finishes or slight changes, because the neighbors don't want to see 5 houses in a row that are cookie cutter. They'll want to see change the color, change the finishes, and those kind of things that can give a little bit more character. But it might be the same basic design.
Exactly. Another question is about rental projects in the City of Lakes Community Land Trust and perpetually affordable housing. So perpetually affordable housing is a homeownership model to ensure perpetually affordable homeownership. So it is not a rental model. So just to be clear, it's used for homeownership so that a household that could otherwise not afford to purchase a home and live in it has a option that lowers the purchase price to an affordable level that allows them to purchase that home in exchange for an equity sharing model. And that equity sharing model is how it reduces the amount of equity that buyer takes out whenever they sell the property, so that the value of that property does not increase above income level increases. So it's not a rental availability, it's specifically for homeownership. And there's a question about if utilities are connected for vacant lots. In most cases, there are utilities. There are some properties that do not have utility connections, but generally speaking, most lots do have utilities connected to them. And just scrolling through to see if we missed anything. If we missed your question, if you want to just send it again, we can try to answer it. Otherwise,
I see one that I think they asked, and I don't have the answer for it necessarily for the Minneapolis Homes financing, but the question is, how long do you need to make the home your primary residence as an owner-occupant applicant?
Oh, yes. And I think that one came through a couple times. So if you're applying as an owner-occupant, that it's going to depend on if it's a perpetually affordable housing model or if it's a recapture model. And recapture, just to reiterate, so that's if you're taking down payment assistance when you're purchasing the property or the buyer's taking down payment assistance. So we record a note in mortgage that's a second mortgage against the property for that down payment assistance. And that is due and payable after 30 years or after the household no longer owner occupies the property. So that applies to recapture. And then if you're doing a perpetually affordable housing project, then that's either a 99-year renewable land lease or a declaration of restrictive covenants that's re-recorded on each sale. So the method is going to depend on one of those two methods.
And if you're an owner occupant applicant for our vacant structures and receiving no financing, because we don't have any note or any other financing structure in place with you, there really are no restrictions. We hope you stay longer than a year, but if there's an opportunity to upgrade to something better, we're not going to hold you back.
That's a great point. Thank you, Matthew. Okay. The question is, if I choose to partner with a Chodo organization, are they required to complete the main application, or would the Chodo certification form be all that's required? So if you're partnering with an organization and they're a Chodo, they would need to be listed on your application and complete the certification form. And the Chodo, like what that effectively means is certified housing developer or development organization. So we receive federal funds, and some of those federal funds are restricted and can only be used with Chodo organizations. And so it gives you a little bit of a competitive advantage. But you would need to partner and have them be a development partner in order to receive those funds. So they would need to be on your application and submit the form. Matthew, there's a question about income limits related to unfunded rental projects.
Okay, income limits rate, unfunded rentals. If you're a developer and you're looking to develop a property for unfunded rentals, the income limit is again 60% AMI for at least 20% of the properties. If you say, for instance, I can afford to do market rate, and I believe that I can make money, and I don't need, in South Minneapolis, we're seeing that happen right now, where you don't need a subsidy, and you're building 10 units, 2 of those units would have to be at 60% AMI. The rest you could get whatever rents you could get. And we're seeing properties in South Minneapolis that are much higher than the household limits that are on the website. Rental prices, I'm saying, are much higher.
And a follow-up question was if there's already any restrictions for selling rental projects.
Any restriction for selling rental projects? Again, there might be something that you put into your application that requires some kind of perpetual affordability for certain units. In those cases, you should check and consult with your real estate attorney on those issues. But right now, I would say it's just a matter of checking to make sure that whatever you sign now is going to be applicable or possibly applicable in the future.
It looks like we're through all the questions that I can see. Let's give it another minute or two and see if any other questions come through. And while we're doing that, just wanted to reiterate our thanks for you spending your evening here with us and listening to the session. And we're excited to see some of your applications come in through our programs. And as a reminder, so my 2 colleagues, Matthew manages our city-owned property purchase program. So that's purchasing either land or vacant buildings and not seeking financing. And then Tara manages our Minneapolis Homes financing program, and that's for affordable homeownership financing for 1 to 20 unit ownership projects, either on city-owned or non-city-owned parcels or property. And then Ryan, who wasn't able to be here today, manages our stabilization program. And then maybe just as one follow-up to that 40% AMI CLCLT question, there might be another pathway where you can work with that household that's looking to purchase a CLCLT property. So the city does fund CLCLT through a home buyer initiated purchase program. I may be misspeaking on the exact terminology of the program, but where a home buyer can reach out to the CLCLT and work with them to purchase a property that's then put into the land trust. And if you have questions about that, I recommend reaching out to Ryan. Otherwise, please feel free to reach out to our staff. We're available to answer questions. And then the application itself is due on the 13th at 1 p.m. Tara or Matthew, I don't see any additional questions. So any last, one additional question. It's about if the city is providing any incentives for green homes and rental projects. So we have, as Matthew mentioned earlier, so we have our Affordable Housing Trust Fund program, so that finances larger scale rental projects. Our staff doesn't oversee that program, so I don't want to misspeak about what incentives do exist, but there are requirements to build to the green community standards for that program. And there may be some additional incentives that exist for building above and beyond that. But the incentives that we're talking about here today are specific to homeownership projects, and there is a sustainability certification incentive, as Tara mentioned earlier this evening. So Tara or Matthew, any final things to say before we end the presentation today?
Yeah, go ahead, Tara.
Oh, I'd just like to say thank you for all who came. It seemed like we had a robust number of people show up in attendance, and we had a good bit of questions asked. So that's an indicator of people being interested and engaged and wanting to be within this space in terms of, providing or acquiring access to affordable housing. So I am looking forward to interacting with you, looking forward to seeing your vision for our properties that we have listed. And, we encourage you to apply because we are looking for, individuals to assist with, reducing these disparities. And we are looking to also help encourage BIPOC and disabled individuals get housing, as well as, gain more experience in this space. So thank you.
And I want to just give one tip, particularly the folks that are new to this and have never done it before, but even those who have done it before. Read the information on the website and follow it along closely, because I've seen in the last couple of rounds, brand new developers who've never developed in the city of Minneapolis before score very high with their projects because they read the information and they understood the information and they applied with that knowledge that's there on the website without having any previous experience, but having read the website and understanding how to apply. So take the time, read it very carefully. Don't just skim over it because there are points that you're leaving, and in this case, leaving money on the table, and you're missing those points if you're not reading very carefully on how to apply.
And quickly before we end it, so one final question came in about a list of general contractors that have successfully completed projects in the program. We do have a list that's a little outdated, so it's from I think it's actually from May of 2019. So it hasn't been updated in a while, but I'll publish the question and then respond to it with the link for that. And then please feel free to reach out with any additional questions. Part of the reason it hasn't been updated is one, just staff capacity, and want to apologize for that, but two, generally speaking, we want to be careful about not directing individuals to any one organization or contractor or lender. And so part of it is about making sure that you're doing your due diligence too, and engaging in interviewing and finding the one that works and meets your needs as well. But we did post the link to that, and this is the list of general contractors or developers that have partnered with the city and built homes through the program in the last 3 years as of 2019. So with that, thank you for your time. We will, as Tara shared earlier, be posting this to the webpage next week, and that'll include both the link to this recording and then also a list of the questions and answers to those questions. So thank you for your time today.
One last thing. I'm still getting applications for the open house waivers, and I will be checking my email up until 8 o'clock tonight for folks that need to get in for tomorrow for Thursday's open houses. If you're looking to get in for Saturday, just go ahead and send it anytime. But If you're looking for tomorrow, please try to get your email to us with your open house waivers by 8 o'clock tonight.
Thank you and have a nice evening.
Thank you. Good
Bye.
night.